Hello and welcome to the lecture of Coordination Chemistry. In this lecture, I will mainly discuss about ligand and central atom, the characteristics of transition metal or D block, and the classification of ligand. So, starting with the general representation of coordination compound, if you write, then the metal N plus oxidation state, then X ligand, and it forms MLX N plus. And if you represent it like this, then this is the central metal atom and these are the ligand. These are the ligand. So this is the central atom and these are ligand in a coordination compound. Now, if you see in the sense of Lewis acid, Lewis base, then I have told you in the previous class the central atom generally takes electron. That means it is electron acceptor, and the ligand generally gives electron. That means it is electron donor. So that means it is electron donor and it is electron acceptor generally. Fine. Now if you see in the Lewis acid Lewis base sense, then ligand gives electron donor. That means it is Lewis base. Fine. And metal, the central atom, takes the electron. It is electron acceptor. That means in the Lewis sense it is Lewis acid. So metal is central atom is Lewis acid and the ligand is Lewis base. That means my coordination compound is the Lewis acid Lewis base adduct. So Lewis acid Lewis base adduct, the coordination compound. Fine. Because central atom takes the electron, it is the electron acceptor. That means in the Lewis sense it is Lewis acid, and the ligand gives the electron. That means it is the electron donor. That means in the Lewis sense it is Lewis base. Hence the coordination compound is Lewis acid Lewis base adduct. Fine. Okay. Now if you see that the central atom in the coordination compound, the central atom in the coordination compound, it can be metal, it can be non-metal also. Fine. So it can be metal, it can be non-metal also. Now this in the most stable complexes, most of the stable complexes and most of the widely studied complexes, widely studied and stable complexes, this central atom is generally a transition metal ion, is generally a transition metal. That means we have to mainly deal with the transition metal. So our focus of study will be where the central atom is transition metal. Now what is this transition metal? Now if you look at the periodic table, then here you have S block, here you have P block, and in between you have D block. Fine. S block nature is generally ionic, P block is covalent in nature, S block generally metallic, metal, and P block elements are generally non-metal. Fine. Now the transition from ionic to covalent or metal to non-metal goes through a transitory phase. Transitory phase. Fine. And this transitory phase is this D block. That is why this is also called transition metal. These elements are also called, these metals are also called transition metals, these elements. So fine. Now our focus of study is transition metal. Now I will talk about the characteristics of transition metal. Characteristics of transition metal. Fine. Now, first, before reading the characteristics of transition metal, I will classify transition metal into two. Transition metal I will classify as typical and non-typical transition metal. Fine. Okay. Now, typical means partially filled d orbital. Partially filled d orbital. That means the d electronic configuration is from d1 to d9. That means partially filled d orbital, what we call as typical transition metal. d1 to d9. Now, non-typical transition metal are those which has completely filled d orbital. So, completely filled or completely unfilled. That means non-typical, if you see the configuration, then either it is D0 or D10. D10 means you can say transition metal ion zinc 2 plus. D0 means scandium 3 plus, you can say, or you can say titanium 4 plus. These are D0 and Zn2 plus, like this. These are D10. That means this falls under the category of non-typical transition metal. So before reading the characteristics of transition metal, we have divided transition metal into two parts: typical transition metal and non-typical transition metal. Now, under typical transition metal, that means partially filled d orbital. That means d1 to d9, any configuration it can have. And in the non-typical sense, non-typical transition metal, that means either completely filled d orbital or completely unfilled. That means either d0 or d10. D10 means Zn2 plus, you can say. D0 means scandium 3 plus, titanium 4 plus. Okay, fine. Now we'll read about the characteristics of transition metal one by one. Okay, now first we'll see. So what we are reading characteristics of d block, you can say, or transition metal. Fine, we are reading this characteristics and we'll read the characteristics one by one. So now we'll read about the characteristics of transition metal. So first is, let's talk about metallic character. Fine, first talk about metallic character. Now all transition metals are hard and brittle. So are hard and brittle except one, that is except Hg, because Hg is soft and liquid. Fine. So except Hg, if you keep aside Hg, then all other transition metals are generally hard and brittle in nature. Now, as the transition metals, as I've earlier said, that generally has partially filled d orbital, partially filled d orbital, you can say partially filled d orbital. That means it shows, transition metal shows good conductivity, because it has partially filled d orbital. That means the metallic character of transition metals are generally all the transition metals are hard, brittle except Hg, which is liquid and soft, and transition metals also shows good conductivity because it has partially filled d orbital. Fine. Okay. Next property, you can say, is that regarding the boiling point and melting point of transition metals. Now, boiling point and melting point of transition metals are generally high due to the metallic bonding that is present in the transition metals. Okay, so boiling point and melting point is high due to metallic bonding. Now, next feature, you can say, is regarding ionization energy. It shows high ionization energy with increasing effective nuclear charge. Fine. So for the transition metals, as effective nuclear charge increases, the ionization energy also increases, because you know energy is equal to minus 13.6 Z effective square by n square. Now according to Koopman's theorem, ionization energy is equal to minus E, that means plus 13.6 effective nuclear charge square by n square. That means as the effective nuclear charge increases, the ionization energy or ionization potential increases in case of transition metals. Fine. Now next feature is regarding atomic and ionic radii. Atomic, or you can say ionic radii. Now in a given series, as the atomic number increases, so that means with increase in atomic number, or you can say atomic number increases means Z effective increases, effective nuclear charge increases. With increase in atomic number, the atomic or ionic radii decreases. Atomic or ionic radii decreases. Fine. The atomic or ionic radii decreases in a given series with increase in atomic number or with increase in effective nuclear charge. And this is because if you see R is equal to A naught n square by Z effective nuclear charge. So you can see Z effective nuclear charge in the denominator. That means as the atomic number increases, effective nuclear charge increases. That means R decreases. That means with increasing atomic number or increasing effective nuclear charge, the atomic and ionic radii decreases. Now let's talk about one more feature, that is complex formation tendency of transition metal ion. Complex formation tendency. Now you see the transition metal ion, transition metal cations, then it has high complex formation tendency. So complex formation tendency is very high for the transition metal cation, because the transition metal cation is size is small. For the transition metal cation, the size is small, and as the size is small, the effective nuclear charge increases. Fine. This is one reason. Another reason is it has vacant inner d orbital. Fine. It has vacant inner d orbital. Fine. Okay. Now we will see another characteristics of transition metal, that is regarding the color. So if you see the main group coordination compounds, is generally does not show color, but if you see the transition metal based coordination compound, then it shows color. That is why it is also important for dye pigment industry. That means the transition metals are of huge importance to us, because transition metal compounds gives color. That means it has industrial use also. Now these transition metal coordination compounds, another characteristics is, if you generally see any unpaired electron species, then you see generally which has unpaired electron, that is unstable in nature, that is not stable, unstable. But if you see the coordination compound nickel H2O6 2 plus, where nickel is in +2 state, that means it is in D8 configuration. Now D8 means, you know, 1 2 3 4 5 6, 7, 8. That means 2 unpaired electron. Still this complex is stable. Still NiH2 2 plus is stable. Ni2 plus is in DH state. That means despite the transition metal coordination compound has unpaired electron, still it shows stability. Still it is stable. Although we generally know that a species which has unpaired electron, that is not generally stable. So these are some special characteristics, special features of transition metals. Now we'll talk about the classification of ligand. So now our focus is on classification of ligand. Right? Now we'll talk about classification of ligand. Now what is ligand? Now you know, in a coordination compound, the central metal atom is surrounded by atoms or group of atoms which we call ligand, which is attached with the central atom through chemical bond. And we know the ligand generally gives the electron, that means it is Lewis base, and the metal generally takes the electron, it is Lewis acid. So now we'll talk about this classification of ligand. Now we'll classify ligand first on the basis of nature. On the basis of nature, we can classify into two. One is organic ligand, another one is inorganic. Now I will give one or two examples. You can see the example in books. On the basis of nature, organic, you can say ethylene. Inorganic, you can say H2O, like this. And in the basis of nature, on the basis of nature, you can also classify. So on the basis of nature, you can also classify the ligand into hard and soft. Fine, hard and soft. Now hard ligand means charge density is high. Now what is charge density? Charge density means charge by size. Now when I say for the hard ligand the charge density is high, that means charge by size ratio is high. Now charge by size ratio is high means either charge is high or size is small, any one. So either charge is high or size is small, then the charge by size ratio will be higher, that means charge density will be higher, and that ligand will be a hard ligand. Now what is soft? The opposite one, the charge density is low, that means charge by size ratio is low, that means either charge is low or size is high, that means charge density will be low. In that case we will call the ligand as soft ligand. Now hard ligand you can take the example of F minus, soft ligand you can take the example of I minus. Fine. So on the basis of nature we have classified the ligand. Now we can classify ligand on the basis of charge also. So on the basis of charge, fine. On the basis of charge. So on the basis of charge, cationic, anionic and neutral. Fine. So cationic means you can say NO plus, anionic Cn minus, neutral CO, like this, H2O. So these are the examples. So I have classified ligands on the basis of nature, organic, inorganic. On the basis of nature, hard and soft. We have seen what is charge density. Now we have classified ligand on the basis of charge, cationic, anionic and neutral. Then now we will classify ligand on the basis of bonding pattern. So on the basis of bonding pattern, fine. We can classify ligand on the basis of bonding pattern as only sigma donor plus weak pi donor, fine. Then you can classify sigma donor plus strong pi donor, fine. Then you can classify sigma donor plus strong pi acceptor, then you can classify as sigma donor pi donor plus pi acceptor. Fine. That means on the basis of bonding pattern you can classify ligand into sigma donor plus weak pi donor, sigma donor plus strong pi donor, sigma donor plus strong pi acceptor, pi donor plus pi acceptor. Now we'll see these 5 one by one. So first let's take sigma donor. Sigma donor means in the donor side of the ligand you have only one lone pair, single lone pair present. Fine. There is no pi electron present, no pi electron, and no vacant site on the donor side of the ligand. That means in case of sigma donor only, in the donor side of the ligand there is only one lone pair, there is no pi electron and no vacant site in the donor site. Fine. So sigma donor, you can take the example of H minus NH3. Fine. This is sigma donor. Now you take sigma donor plus weak pi donor. Okay. In the donor site you have two lone pair, and out of these two lone pair, one lone pair is involved in sigma donor donation and the other lone pair is involved in pi donation. Now which is involved in pi donation, that is higher energetic, okay, and which is involved in the sigma donation, that is lower energetic. Okay, this is sigma donor and weak pi donor. Example is NH2 minus R2O, two lone pair, R2S. So two lone pair, one is involved in sigma donation, other one is in pi donation. This is sigma donor plus weak pi donor. Now next is sigma donor plus strong pi donor. Fine. Sigma donor and strong pi donor. In the donor site, ligand has 3 or 4 lone pair. 3 or 4 lone pair. Now during interaction, these lone pair break into two set of lone pair. One is higher energetic, and the other one is lower energetic. Fine. Now which is higher energetic? That means it is involved in pi donation, and the lower energetic is involved in sigma donation. Fine. So sigma donor and strong pi donor. What I am saying, in the donor side there will be 3 or 4 lone pair. During interaction, this lone pair will break into two set. One is higher energetic, another one is lower energetic. Which is higher energetic, that will be involved in pi donation, which is lower energetic, that will be involved in sigma donation. Fine. The example you can take O2 minus, F minus, Cl minus, Br minus. These are the example. Sigma donor plus strong pi acceptor. Okay, sigma donor plus strong pi acceptor. Now here what happens, the ligand to metal sigma donation occurs. Ligand gives its sigma electron to the metal, and metal is strong pi acceptor. That means it takes the electron. That means metal gives the electron to the ligand, that is pi acceptance of the ligand. Okay. This kind of ligand which shows sigma donor plus strong pi acceptor capacity, that kind of ligand we say pi acid ligand. Fine. Now as I am saying that the ligand will accept the pi electron, that means the ligand must have vacant orbital in the donor side. So the ligand must have vacant orbital. So as I am saying, the ligand is a strong pi acceptor, that means the ligand must have vacant orbital. Now these vacant orbital can be d orbital, can be sigma star, can be pi star. Fine. Okay. Now the example, you know the example: CO, Cn minus, NO plus, C2H4, PR3, ASR3, like this. These are the example of sigma donor plus strong pi acceptor ligand. Now next is the final one is pi donor. Next one is pi donor plus pi acceptor. So the ligand can donate the pi electron, it can accept the pi electron. So pi donor and pi acceptor. The examples you can say alkene, alkyne. Okay, fine. Now when I said that pure sigma donation, only sigma donating ligand, that means sigma donating ligand can stabilize the higher oxidation state of the metal, because it gives only sigma donation occurs from ligand to the metal. That means even if the metal has higher oxidation state, it can be stabilized. That means a ligand which has sigma donation capability, it can stabilize higher oxidation state metal. But the pi acid ligand, you can say, that means which has sigma donation capability and pi acceptance capability. That means what happens in pi acid ligand, the ligand gives a sigma electron to the metal, and the metal also gives electron to ligand. Now if this metal is in higher oxidation state, then it will not be able to give electron to the ligand. That means in the pi acid ligand, the metal should be in low oxidation state or zero oxidation state. Then the metal will be the metal can easily give electron to the ligand. So what we have seen today, we have seen that we are doing the classification of ligand. First we have classified ligand on the basis of nature. On the basis of nature we have said organic, inorganic. On the basis of nature we have said soft and hard. We have seen what is charge density. Then we have said on the basis of charge, neutral, anionic and cationic. Then we have said on the basis of, we have classified ligand on the basis of bonding pattern. Under bonding pattern we have seen 5 types: sigma donor plus weak pi donor, sigma donor plus strong pi donor, sigma donor plus strong pi acceptor, then pi donor plus pi acceptor. Now you can also classify ligand on the basis of denticity, but this discussion will not do in this class. We will do this discussion in the next class, because we will deal with this very elaborately. So on the basis of denticity, ligand can also be classified, and we will not read this in this lecture, we will read in the next lecture. So that's it for today's lecture.